Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this SICC-ESSEC Leadership Series webinar. It's great to have your company, and our topic today is building a better workplace culture, what lies ahead. As you know, the Chamber really focuses and advocates on positive workplace culture, simply because it makes commercial sense. Happy teams make happy customers, and happy customers are happy repeat customers. What does it take to build a better workplace culture? Has the pandemic been a positive catalyst for change? To answer this and other questions related to the topic, we've got a great panel led by Professor Aarti Ramaswami. She is the Deputy Dean for ESSEC Asia Pacific, and she's also a Professor in Management. And I want to thank ESSEC Business School for being our title sponsor and for their consistent support of their chamber and indeed this series of events and webinars on leadership. I also would like to encourage you to help us build some data on the efficacy or otherwise of a virtual networking tool called Nobi. And I hope that some of you will have registered an account and will try this out. This is an experiment we're running for the second half of 2020, basically to find out whether you like it, whether you don't, and we'd love to hear your feedback. So thank you for your cooperation, and thanks for helping us with this experiment. Without further ado, I'm now going to hand over to Professor Aarti Ramaswami to introduce ESSEC and, of course, her wonderful panel. Artie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Victor. I'm just going to share my screen for a moment here. There you go. All right, a very, very good morning to everyone who's on the panel today and to all our participants. I want to start with two very quick messages about gratitude and connection. I am extremely grateful for being here on this panel this morning. It's exciting to talk about a topic that's very close to my heart in terms of my research, the pedagogy, which very much focuses on transformational leadership, transformational organizations, and also transformational education. And what better time to talk about this than now, given how incredible a year all of us have been through. So very happy to be here this morning. Without further ado, I would like to introduce the panel to you, and we have a lineup of questions. We will have time for Q&A towards the end. You've been given instructions on how you can participate if you are one of the audience members, so you can put your questions in the chat. But keep it going so that we can have a very interactive session, and we have a lot to share. I don't know, Stephenie, if you would like to show the videos and open up the videos of the panelists. It would be great to see them and put a face to a name here. I mentioned two messages, the first being of gratitude to my team, ESSEC, and to SICC for having this panel organized today on a topic that's very relevant for us, as Victor mentioned. I also have a message about connection, because this is a moment for us to get together, if not around a table or in a venue, at least around the screen, to share our ideas, our perspectives on topics that are impacting us on a day-to-day basis. So this is not an abstract notion of culture and organizational change and dealing with them, but understanding from real experiences and learnings from what all of us have collectively been through in the past months, and how we can prepare for the future. So without further ado, let me start with Mr. Adrian Ng. We have Adrian joining us this morning, along with Ms. Stephenie Teo and Jorge Rodriguez. Adrian is a managing director in Asia Pacific for Edicio, a global leader in feed additives, and you will hear more from Adrian about his organization, what they have been doing in the past 6 months dealing with the current pandemic, especially since Adrian has been very prominent in national media talking about the crisis, as well as his perspectives on how organizations can deal with the current challenges we are facing. Adrian has a tremendous international experience having worked in Europe, China, and Asia, building and managing multinational teams and multicultural teams. Importantly, Adrian attended an executive management program at ESSEC Business School. It's always nice to welcome and see our alumni on a panel. So thank you, Adrian, for being with us, and look forward to hearing from you. We have also with us Ms. Stephenie Teo, the Head of Learning and Talent Management at the Bank of Singapore. Stephenie's work revolves around learning and talent development. She has a passion and advocacy for enabling and elevating workforce capabilities to be able to deal with the brave new world. That's a fantastic line in your bio. Strong advocate for a learning organization and continuously seeing how we can evolve and be agile in dealing with situations. So Stephenie, we really look forward to hearing from you. Stephenie graduated from ESSEC Business School with an executive MBA. Once again, very nice to have you back on the panel. And thank you again for your consistent contributions and partnership with ESSEC. It's always nice to see the paying it forward coming into play and action over here. We also have Mr. Jorge Rodriguez. Jorge is the Group Managing Director for Influential Brands. It's a think tank, a research and business platform that's created to share the best business practices from leading organizations, clearly promoting the champions of excellence in areas of business leadership, technology, human capital, and corporate branding, all topics very relevant to today's discussion on culture and how we can move forward. And especially with your vast experience and scope covering Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, and China, certainly we can have international perspectives on the topics that we are talking about today. Jorge graduated from ESSEC Business School with an MBA in luxury brand management and a passionate advocate for consumer behavior and technology. Welcome again to all of you, and thank you for being with us today. Before we deep dive into what it means to have a transformational culture, what does organizational culture even mean in the situation of a pandemic, the crisis that we've been through? Clearly, this has been an incredible year. The way we live, the way we work, the way we teach, the way we learn, the way we build trust with each other has completely changed, and for want of a better word, disrupted. And that's a word that we've heard ad infinitum, ad nauseum, but clearly we have all experienced that. And in a situation like that, there are calls for individuals, teams, and organizations to be innovative, to be agile, to be future thinking, at the same time, to be resilient and empathetic and focused on the people, focused on the processes without losing sight of the values and the profits and so on. So this is a lot of demands placed on us as individuals, leaders and managers of organizations. It would be great to hear your perspective as we move on through the different questions. Let me start with a little bit on what culture is, right? And then we go into what is culture in a crisis situation, and how do we transform organizations and understand organizational cultures in a crisis situation. So I won't go into a long lecture on what culture is, but we have to understand that when we think about people and organizations, we are human beings with needs, with relationships. And yes, an organization has products and services to offer. By the end of the day, it's the people that make the place. And we have roots of culture in anthropology, in sociology, that help us understand currently what we are facing. So if you think about culture as artifacts, art and artifacts, the things that make our organization. So an organization like a school, for example, has tables and chairs, there are students, there's a desk, there's a chalk, there's a blackboard. These are the artifacts that make up what an organization is. And clearly, depending on the organization that you are in, you would have products and services that make up a certain ambience of the place that you are working in. Another way to look at culture is through values, through the beliefs that we have. And these beliefs can come through, it could be religious beliefs, it could be non-religious beliefs, it could be through our socialization process, it could be through education, it could be through cultural experiences. But even in organizations, we come with a set of beliefs that influence the way we see the world, the way we understand crisis, the way we understand relationships, the way we look at talent. They come from a certain set of beliefs about people, about organizations, about the present, about the past, and about the future. And all of them define a certain value proposition that we have for ourselves and for the customers and the clients that we are trying to serve. We can also understand culture through customs and traditions, and not so much to talk about religious customs and traditions, but we have organizational customs and traditions. We have norms. The way a certain meeting is conducted, for example, is also a way to follow a certain norm. And we may have a moment to reflect on what are the norms of the organization? What are the customs that we follow? What is the way in which certain things get done? And this probably in very dry terms would be called a standard operating procedure, right? What is the customary way to get something done? But it's still a part of our culture. Another way is looking at knowledge. What is the knowledge that you have created in an organization through discussions, whether you're in the knowledge economy or whether you're in an organization that looks at specific products or services. There is a certain knowledge base. And when we look at organizations as learning organizations, as Stephenie, you are very passionate about, there is a certain way to retain that knowledge and retain the learnings. And this is something that we also look at how it defines the culture of the organization. What do we remember for the future? And what do we let go of in terms of the learning and the knowledge that we gain from our experiences, right? Looking at languages. What is the language that we use with each other? How do we speak to each other? What is spoken and what is not spoken? Every organization has a jargon, and only you in that organization knows that better than anybody else, right? Whether it's an acronym or whether it's a certain sense of a meeting where you discuss something and there's a hidden humor and an inside joke. It's all related to the language and the culture that we have in the organization. And that can also define how we deal with crisis, where our attention goes, what kind of words we use, what is the narrative and the stories that we engage in. Another issue with respect to language, given that in Singapore and also across your organizations, we are living and working with diverse individuals who look at the world in different ways. They have different belief systems, they have different customs, different knowledge structures, and different ways of describing what they are experiencing. And that can influence how we move forward with an organization. Laws, what is right, what is wrong, what is allowed, what is not allowed. They can be perceptual. They can also be defined and very explicit in organizations and cultures. And lastly, values, or I wouldn't call them ethics as such, but these are mores or ways of life. What is acceptable in an organization? How do we measure accountability? What are the principles, or what is our North Star? What is our compass, right? So with that opening on what culture is, I would like to start our panel discussion with getting a little bit deeper into what organizational culture means to you, given what we have just shared, and what stands out in your company's culture with respect to customs, values, language norms, and so forth. Maybe we can start with Adrian and move on to Stephenie and Jorge. Adrian, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. First of all, like to really thank SICC and ESSEC for inviting me to really share in this very, I would say, engaging topic. So, well, I work for Adesio, a French company. You can see I'm very French, and I've been working in different, I would say, capacities around the world. And thank you, Professor Artie, for this very nice and insightful highlights and introduction. The way I see organization culture, it's really in the traits that define what a company stands for. I mean, in my own words, I'll say that's the raison d'être of what actually shapes the company. And I would say that in those terms, values and behaviors in every company does play an important part to communicate what we stand for and how we can actually function, you know, with the right modus operandi during a crisis. And in our DCO, the values that we look at includes being results-oriented, commitment, team spirit, and very importantly, integrity and creativity. And in terms of behavior, we always, because we work in a multicultural and very dynamic team, we always believe in respect because of the diversity that we work in, customer as the center of the organization, engagement, courage, and simplicity. I think these are, I would say, the key values and behaviors that shape the way we see our people, and that's where we really want them to be. I think it's very important because when you look at other CEO, we are actually part of the food ecosystem. I mean, as all of us, when we talk about COVID, about even culture, the most important thing is, well, we're all at home, right? We need to get fed. And we're actually part of the essential services during this time. And it's not just making sure that our people are safe. I think safety is one of our first priority in the organization, but also ensuring that we can function normally and really supply to our clients. So, I mean, that takes a lot of, I think, engagement, buy-in, and really sharing with people why we need to do, and day to day, just ensuring that our people are safe while ensuring that we have food on our table. So I think that takes a long way, and it's still a learning journey, if I can say that. Thank you, Artie.
Thank you very much, Adrian. We're going to come back to some of the descriptives that you use to describe your culture with respect to creativity, integrity, courage, and simplicity. These are very much relevant, and they will come back into see how they are translated into behaviors that we can learn from as well through your experience. Stephenie.
Hi, a very good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Artie, SICC and SICC for having me today. I mean, culture is something that is very passionate to me and is very, very close to my heart, right? Being in the banking sector for the last 15 years, I've gone through different journeys and seen the culture from different banks. But really, what is culture all about, right? And to me, it's really a symphony of people, and like what Artie actually mentioned earlier, right? It's about the values, the mindset, the behaviors. It's the melting pot of our way of life, engagement, interactions, and also the unspoken languages and practices within an organization. And to me, culture is also the reflection of the richness of our company's heritage. Where did we come from? How did we evolve? What is really our roots? And for us at Bank of Singapore, for just a little introduction of us, we are a subsidiary of OCBC Bank. I'm sure all of you would know OCBC Bank, but perhaps not many may have heard of Bank of Singapore. We take care of the ultra high net worth, and we really focus on managing their wealth in Bank of Singapore. And therefore, culture in Bank of Singapore is our soul and our identity. And how we have actually portrayed this is really the tone from the top, right? What the leadership team defines and role model for one to mean what does it mean to work in the organization? What does my organization espouse, the behaviors that are portrayed by the employees? Perhaps, many of us think that banking and finance, right, is a very serious, industry, right? Bankers very well-heeled, in their black suits, and perhaps, some of the female bankers would be carrying their Birkin bags. And then also the impression that, hey, we work very long hours, demanding timelines. And if you have caught the movie, The Lone Wolf, right, it's really very grueling schedules as well. But I would like to take this opportunity to debunk this. Yes, we are very hardworking people. We do work very hectic schedules, but at the same time, we are also very fun as well, right? And the important reason is why we are always seemingly on the edge is because we work very, very hard for our clients. Let me think about it. We are in the space of ultra high net worth, individuals who have entrusted millions and millions of hard-earned money in our hands, right? And even more so in today's economic, environment where we are today, we have a responsibility to look after our clients well. And therefore, in Bank of Singapore, the excellency culture and the entrepreneurial air is very, very strong. And that's the reason, the very fundamental of it is because we just want to do well for our clients, right? And as a result, this value, this culture has ingrained in us to give our very best, and also to look beyond, you know, the circumference where we are, and think of what is the most bespoke but suitable financial, you know, product for our clients. And I think these very two fundamentals has been the root of our culture, you know, always seeking for the very best, you know, putting on the merit performance, but yet at the same time, embracing the care, the empathy, and most importantly, upholding integrity in our work. Over to you, Artie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephenie. I'm going to come back to the notions of excellency and entrepreneurial mindset, because this is something that allows an organization to remain innovative and agile and meeting certain standards. And also, thank you for sharing about, you mentioned a lot about the clients and taking care of the clients. Every organization has a North Star. For me, in an educational setting, it's the students, the participants, of course, our alumni, our corporate partners, and depending on who you ask, you're going to have a different North Star, and very much guided by ensuring that we are following the path and not losing sight of who we are ultimately serving. So on that note, I invite Jorge to share a few words on the opening question here.
Thank you, Artie. I would like to echo our my co-panelists to thank SICC and ESSEC as well for inviting us for this special occasion. I think it's a very relevant topic. When you talk about culture, actually it's a very broad term, and the interesting thing is that many people have different definitions about culture. I myself, I come from Latin America, and now I am living in Singapore for 16 years. I married a Chinese Singaporean, and my family has been raised here. I have 2 boys in Singapore. So accommodating to the culture of Singapore has also been a process for me. And how our company embrace culture, organizational culture, is going from the individual and looking at the company in terms of what is the purpose of the company. So for us, when we look at culture, organizational culture, we look at what type of guidelines lead us into make certain decisions, behaviors, attitude towards our colleagues, partners, and different shareholders. Being in Singapore, I noticed that acronyms work. So we have our own company's acronym is CARE, and CARE stands for customer, attitude, responsibility, and empathy. It's very interesting how this COVID has impacted different organizations. And something that I must admit is that during COVID-19, we have adjusted our culture. Our definition has changed. So now I can say that we are 100% a customer-centric organization. We have been serving customers in the past, but something that we realized is that before we were very product-centric, and we have evolved into becoming more customer-centric. So all in all, our definition of organizational culture, which is set around care, we use care because of customer. We care about our customers. We place a lot of emphasis on them. We understand them. And actually, this drives innovation as well. So the mindset of all our employees evolve around the needs of our customers. In terms of attitude is very critical for us because, and I will tell you, when we build culture, you build culture from the get-go, from the moment that you recruit, from the moment that you go through the interview process. Very important to ensure that the individual have a culture that is fully aligned with the company culture. And it's very easy to say, but it's not so easy to identify. So when we look at attitude, we place more emphasis on attitude even over skills. So we know that skills can be trained. Of course, must have certain basic, but without attitude, is something that we will not be able to nurture these individuals. For us, attitude is very important. Responsibility goes along with taking ownership, and this is very critical. And this has been, I will say, one of the key points for us during this COVID-19, because you need to trust your employees, and having and empower them is critical for us. And finally, empathy. This was also a very key important point during this COVID-19, because we need to really understand our employees, and employees also need to understand the employer. What are the situations that we're going through, and we need to be very honest and sincere. So all in all, I will say the organizational culture is what set you in terms of behavior, in terms of decision-making process as well. Mm-hmm. Because if you set proper organizational culture, how you make decisions, which ultimately can translate into profits, are very critical. So that's my take. I mean, for us, we use the acronym CARE. I can really elaborate more on that, because we have underlying values behind this, but this is just our starting point.
Great, thank you, Jorge, for that. I'm going to come back to the notion of trust, talent, attitudes and skills, and what you can actually select for, what you can train for, given the short time that some of our colleagues may be with us. So moving on to the current situation. So we have an understanding of what is culture, what are the notions of culture that you have in your organization, what stands out in terms of the values and the practices and worldviews, because I hear from what you have shared, language, looking at crisis as an opportunity or a challenge, looking at the customs, looking at how we view a certain colleague in the organization, and how they can be helpful for us in managing the situation. So if you move on to the next slide here, I won't say much. I think it's quite evident when you see that 2020 is going to be an unforgettable year for everyone. This is one of the things that we tell our students as well. What are the stories and the narratives that you're going to have beyond the challenge and the sadness and the loss? There is something to hope for. Certainly, many of our colleagues, many organizations, many individuals have gone through tremendous disruption in their personal lives and in their organizational lives. And many of us are privileged to be working in an organization that is still functioning, to continue to have a job, to continue to have health, to continue to have access to resources. Despite all the challenges, there is probably a silver lining that we can also think about, right? How can we see beyond the dark clouds that may be hovering above us, hovering above some of our near and dear ones in the same organization or maybe in other organizations? So what I would like to move on to is just to graze on another pasture with respect to what this pandemic has actually highlighted as the strengths of your organization that you of course would know before, but now it comes up as well. This is something that will sustain us, and it's going to help us, whether it's your collaborative spirit, whether it's your entrepreneurial spirit, as you mentioned, Stephenie, whether it's with respect to the attitudes and the talent that you have in the organization. And what did COVID force you to re-examine or even confront with respect to maybe vulnerability, the leadership, and how communication happens in the organization? We always think what we do is enough, but oftentimes it's never enough. Because the person who's receiving that communication is coming to that situation with a certain mindset, a certain need, a certain aspiration. I would love to hear from you on this topic. Maybe we start with Stephenie.
Well, sure. The COVID period definitely was, very challenging for many people. But at the same time, I would say that it has also been very memorable as well. I'm very, very privileged to have witnessed the, true blue entrepreneurial spirit that we hold so close at play. It just made it, very worthwhile. I would call it even expedition for everyone. Now, one of the very key takeaways for me during this entire episode, right, is the value of agile project methodology and the mindset that is associated with agile. Now, pre-COVID days, the organization has been, trying to implement or rather, infuse and have the agile culture permeate, through the organization. But I must say that, in many research, right, and everyone has also been very familiar, COVID has accelerated a lot of things, not only in terms of digitalization, but also in terms of the future of work as well. Now, personally, I'm a very big fan of Agile, right? And just to give you a little sneak preview, what is it all about, right? It's about self-organizing teams, right? Where, the team size it just takes 2 pizza size to feed them, essentially. And what it also means for the team is about responsive decision-making, empowerment, trusting people to do their jobs, right? And more importantly, transparency. So COVID has demonstrated that, these agile principles were very, very ideal in quickly cascading information across the organization. So I've actually spoke about entrepreneurship earlier on. And agile is all about, knowing what to do and doing the right things and being empowered to do it. So we took what is known, as a concept from Scrum, right, a tenet of agile. And what we did was we had daily stand-up meetings, right, across the different hierarchies from the management team all the way down through the different levels, right? So we had 15 very short stand-up meetings just to keep, everyone updated. And it's also a channel for the management team to cascade information down. And as all of you would appreciate, right, the situation then was pretty chaotic. Things were evolving every day. We're not sure, like, how many people could be at work, or even, from a employee health perspective. Let's say, if you have a circumstance where, someone is tested positive, came into the office, what do you need to do? What is your backup plan? So it was really to us the, epitome of business continuity at work, right? And this whole concept of agile were able to bring that up because we empowered the managers to make the decisions in the best interest of their teams, right? To put on the entrepreneurial hat to say, hey, what do you need to do? For frontliners, right? If you need to work from home, what systems do you need? How do you get IT to support for support function, right? If there are systems that can only be accessed in the office, how do you split the team? Who stays? What is the rotation like, right? It's really just getting across everyone to come together to support what is effective for the team and the organization, and also holding very close what does customer experience mean for our clients, right? And I think, when you ask a question, why did COVID force you to re-exam or even confront? I would not say that, it's a gap to confront, but rather I see it as a silver lining, as what you have actually put it, right? The good news, the bad news, we share them, but more importantly, right, accelerating what the future of work to be, bringing on digitalization as quickly as possible, bringing on a new wave of working culture, right, and having people to embrace them, because on one hand, they have no choice, but on the other hand, it is also helping them to transit into the new way of work as well. And getting all of that involved.
Thank you for sharing that. And clearly, beyond our notions of what an organization can be and should do, there are day-to-day crises and challenges that confront us to actually put that into action, right? Whether it's an employee or a colleague that's falling sick, there is also the need for working from home. These are needs that probably were there before, but were unspoken needs. And now we are confronting new needs and new ways of looking at how we can work in the future. Thank you for sharing also about the agile method. And this is something we will come back to when we talk about tools, so that we can go a little bit deeper into how that can work for us, and maybe for some of the others who are joining us today, who might have some questions on how it was implemented in the organization and how we can move from there. Adrian.
Yeah, I think coming from my end, first of all, I think COVID is something that is non-discriminatory. It doesn't matter whether you are part of the grassroots that support the company, or you are the backbone, the managers that make things work, or you're part of the board. It doesn't also really matter if you live in a HDB flat or condominium, or good class bungalow, to be honest, because when we said that we come to crisis, right? The first reaction, well, being a Singaporean and leading also a largely Singapore team, everyone starts pressing the panic button. I think no one is actually engineered to handle crisis, right? I mean, our body is not engineered. Everybody fears crisis. Everybody fears change. And when we first shut down the office, I mean, it was a joke, but I was thinking about organization culture and thinking about team spirit. The first thing that everyone say in unison when we say we're going to shut the office and everyone goes back to work from home, everyone was very happy. I mean, that was the first team spirit that you see. Everyone was very engaged and say, really? That is going to happen? Never happened in their life for people who have worked for decades. But I mean, jokes aside, I think when that happened, it really put into place, into practice, all the hundreds and thousands of pages of, safety manuals about how a company should operate when a crisis happens. It's really put to test. You're really going through the tensile test of seeing whether things work. And when that happened, I have no formula book to really follow up to. I remembered the very first day when the government announced, the circuit breaker, the phase 1. We didn't know what to do. I mean, we just had to react very quickly. Like Stephenie mentioned, you need to be on the ball, on the road, and doing things almost instantly. We set up a pandemic team, involving all the functional heads and also the people in the region, because we operate in the whole region, and it's a very diverse territory with very different, I would say, evolution of the COVID pandemic in different cases. You can imagine, working in places like Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, and those places, and how do you manage them? And something I've also learned that the organization culture that really stands out during this is, I feel that the team spirit really does stands out a lot, because you need to engage each and everyone in the organization. When a crisis happens, it's not the responsibility of the management, as people like to say. I think leadership has to start from the grassroots, all the way up, and we will try to get feedback from everyone to help us understand. Okay, first of all, when a crisis happens, how do you ensure that everyone is safe? I think safety is number one priority in the company, and we kept emphasizing and making sure that everybody is safe. We have to challenge the status quo, right? As we said, that crisis always creates opportunity, right? And the only constant we know is change. So we said, how can we ensure that other than keeping the people safe, how can they work safely too? Because you can imagine a lot of things are impossible. It cannot be done, right? Which goes to the second question, what we will actually re-examine in terms of our processes. I mean, pre-COVID, everybody said it's not possible to do this, it's not possible to do that, you can't do this, it's not possible. Nothing is possible. So when COVID came, it really hit us hard on the wall, and we need to rethink deeply and quickly what are the things that we need to do. Like, people need to go back and print a document, we need to physically sign things. I mean, very practical things. How do you function in the office, ensuring you have all the sanitation, you take the temperature and all this day-to-day stuff, and you're always very cautious, and everyone is just looking at each other. Are we doing the right stuff? Because there's no precedence, and we're still working out. So I guess that this COVID crisis had actually accelerated how the organization is actually relooking at some of the processes, some of the things that we have been pushing for the past months or years. And this has forced the team to say, okay, we have to do it, and we have to do it now. And to ensure, again, two things: how we keep the people safe. I mean, now as we speak, not just in the past, but now and in the future. and also to ensure we continue to serve our clients, as we say that customer centricity is one of the core values, and not just delivering business results, but how to do it in a sustainable manner. Because end of the day, an organization is only as good as the talents and the people that make it, that implement the company's strategy and vision. So I think it's very important that in culture, the most important thing is about the people. Yeah.
Thank you for highlighting the importance of having an external shock sometimes to accelerate what an organization may have not been able to do in the past. Some people say COVID is a blessing in disguise, but I think it's probably not the best metaphor to use, because it's not been a blessing for a lot of people, a lot of organizations, but it's certainly an external shock that forces us to reconsider and say, hey, we couldn't do it in 3 years, but we got to do it in 3 weeks now. And that's something what is what happened with our school as well. I mean, we transformed our entire learning and pedagogy in 2 weeks to an online platform, which if we had tried to do, it would have taken years, because there's no external shock that's needed. There is an urgency, and there's always the silver lining to the urgency is that we can move things forward faster. Thank you for that, Adrian, and also the point about getting the feedback from the grassroots, right? The people on the field and the ones who are actually having the interface with the clients, who are having the field notes. They know better than the leadership team. They have a wealth of information and wisdom that we can be vulnerable enough, humble enough to listen to and learn from, and that informs our processes much better. So thank you for highlighting that as being some of the underlying things that you've re-examined and confronted in your organization. Jorge, I'm just going to call you to share your views, and I'm getting a little notification from my computer here to replug something. So while I do that, please go ahead, but don't be distracted by me. I'm trying to be agile here as we talk about agility in organizations here.
No worries, no worries. So, I mean, exactly what Adrian was describing is also, I believe, most of the organization has gone through. Ourselves, I guess the first reaction we had was, okay, we have to look at our financial position, because we need to start from there. I think we need to think about how long can we sustain this business. We need to look at how we can keep the team, how we can keep the morale up, because this was the very basic of fundamentals for us. Thinking, being one of our core principles, empathy, we also put ourselves in the shoes of our customers, and we make an executive decision for the first semester of this year not to approach to any customer except the recurring customers that we already have, but we make an executive decision not to pursue any additional services or business development. So for us, we take this as it was not easy. So we have to look at our financials in our case, but I think it was a good decision, because all companies on the side, we have some chats with some account managers, talking to our clients, and we can sense and we can feel the pain that what they were going through. So whether it's companies from hospitality, aviation, we have many clients in the area of aviation, hospitality. So it was very hard to see what was happening. So what we did is during the beginning of this pandemic, we put more emphasis on innovation. The good thing is that we have quite a lot of projects in the pipeline that we were, it was in the queue happening for many, many years. So we say, okay, this is the time to restart all the projects. Let's think about 2021. And let's ensure that our communications are going to be fluid. What do you need? And I think the point about empathy came also very strong, understanding that managers, how they manage the executive as well. I think that the heavy burden fall under the shoulders of managers or people who are the supervisors who need to take care of their below the line. I mean, you need to we will spend time telling them that we will be objective focused. not so much in terms of what time they start working, what time they leave. I don't need to micromanage. Just ensure that we deliver on time. We spend a lot of time on planning. So it has been a totally different world altogether, because before it was kind of weekly updates. It was very easy to plan, but now we need to reshuffle everything, and we need to plan quite well in advance, and making sure that the morale of the team keep high. So it was a very challenging experience. However, we feel that we will come, and we are coming stronger. I always tell the team that now this is, I think we come to the realization, after these past few months, we come to the realization that this is the new norm. So there was a few months ago, we were thinking, okay, pandemic will pass, we will find a cure and vaccine, and then everything will go back to normal. I think the question is, what is the new normal? And the new normal is not going to be as it was before. So the decision on our side is to embrace all the tools that are available, empowering the team. So we have recalibrate our organizational culture, which is very critical. Our leadership team is also embracing new technologies. It's very interesting that during this time, we have embarked into very exciting projects, from technology to artificial intelligence, topics that we were not thinking to embark on this year. I mean, we as clients just approach to us, and we say, okay, we can do it. And actually we have acquired quite a lot of knowledge, I must admit. So we take this COVID time as more like an opportunity. The team has been able to accommodate to our business conditions. So we were very upfront from the beginning of how we will be managing the first 6 months and the second 6 months. So I think the key concerns were about sustainability of the overall business, and whether they should be already preparing the resumes. So
very good.
We have to talk to them. We have to explain them.
Yeah.
So it becomes this part of the human aspect that is very critical for us. So yeah, I mean, we have changed a few things, being more customer centric base, and I think we will emerge stronger after this kind of saga that we're facing.
Thank you, Jorge. There's a lot each of us can share from our experiences and from our learnings, the tools that we are using, the mindsets, how we use technology to enable us to move forward, and to also confront all of that in the most empathetic, caring way. In the interest of time, we have about 10 or 15 minutes before we open up the floor to the audiences, and we still have a few more topics for us to talk about. So we might switch up the format a little bit, where for the next question, I might address it to maybe 1 or 2 panelists. And then what we can do is, if you still have some things to share on the topic, we can always bring that up in the Q&A session. All right. So you will always have the chance to share from your perspective. We all heard of Peter Drucker. He's very famously quoted that culture eats strategy for breakfast. No matter what we plan in the boardroom, and in a very nice boardroom like the one you have behind you in the screen, Stephenie, is that ultimately it has to have the buy-in, right? Going back to what Adrian shared with us about listening to the people who are actually on the ground, and if it's a strategy that makes sense, then it's something that's easily implemented, because you can have a great strategy, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say. If it's not, there's no buy-in, there's no proper implementation, there's no clear explanation of why we have a new policy or a new way of dealing with a customer or a new way of working, then it becomes much harder to sort of move forward and deal with the challenge. The next set of questions, I'm going to address that to Stephenie, because I know talent is something that is key to what you do on a day-to-day basis. The first one is kind of a rhetorical question, right? How do you prepare for an unpredictable future while trying to still deal with what seems to still be an unpredictable day-to-day present, right? It's there in front of us. We are thinking about what opportunities the new situation creates. strategic opportunities, it could be market opportunities, whatever they may be. But at the same time, you have to deal with day-to-day basis. What in this situation is talent for you? How have you redefined for yourself on the organization what talent is? And to push that question a little further, who in this crisis is talent in an organization? Do they come with a certain set of competencies? Now, if you were to hire for new people, are you filtering them with a certain set of attitudes, mindsets that you feel are much more required to be able to deal with the next 5 years or 10 years in your organization? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a very short answer to that. And my very response would be, actually anyone can be a talent, right? Anyone who is willing to step up, anyone who's just willing to roll up the sleeves, right, and support the team in normal circumstances and also in crisis, and more so in crisis as well, right? I think we've actually seen a lot of unsung heroes within the organization who just step out and do things extraordinary for their colleagues. Well, in private banking, we are a very people and relationship business. I think like what my fellow panelists have actually mentioned, right? We take care of not only our staff, but we also need to take care of our clients as well. And with that, we need to do the right things. So anyone can be a talent, anyone with the right mindset, right? Who has that empathy, embraces our core values, right? And I think importantly, being entrepreneurial and caring for their teams, this is the epitome of what talent is all about. We all know that, you know, that there's often, if you're familiar with the graph, right, there is the skill and the will, right? Skill can be trained, right? Anyone with a basic skill, I think with the will, you're able to train a skill. And I think what Jorge actually mentioned earlier, it's also the value system actually of the individual. Whether the individual is aligned with the shared vision as well as the shared values of the organization. Now, when that happens, right, there is that alignment, the inclusion of that individual to participate in the shared processes is more highly engaged in that sense. So just as a summary, anyone really, you know, who is willing to embrace this, to uphold this, anyone who's just willing to cross out of their comfort zone, out of their boundaries, it's self-leadership.
Yeah, and if I can just add on what Stephenie was saying, something that we are also embracing is about identifying experts within the company. So instead of being just a department type of based organization, so the organization has become very fluid. I am very amazed when new people come to me or to other head of department and say, you know what, we want to change. We want to take a different role within the organization. We have seen, not sure if you have seen this within your organization, but we have seen people from marketing moving into business development, people from communication doing market research, graphic designers want to do account servicing. So there is a shift in terms of interest, and I think this is not only driven by millennials, but we see also a Gen X also willing to embrace new subjects. And I think we're very blessed that we have the technology available today, because yesterday I was watching a show and then I realized that knowledge is really at your fingerprints. You want tomorrow to be a cook. I believe that before you used to take a few months to become a cook. Now you in 1 week, if you know the recipe and you are properly guided, you could start cooking. I think there is so much knowledge out there, and I think something we need to inculcate is that don't be afraid of changing career or changing departments. I think you could become an expert on different fields. And I think there are plenty of support from the government today. So yes, my few cents words is that just nurture the people that you have and just be open to ask them, do you want to do something else? Because this is all about steering innovation within your company, and this will drive the culture up.
Thank you for that, Jorge and Stephenie. What you're touching on is what we call actually in organizational research as citizenship behaviors. These are behaviors that go beyond what's in your job description, right? Nobody put in your job description that you have to go above and beyond during a pandemic. It's not there. It's something that is implicit, it's understood. And it's also an impetus that comes from within the individual to say, all right, let me see how I can step up, how I can contribute in a situation that requires much more from an individual, from the team, because they may not be able to do that just on their own. It also requires the organization to have that mindset, as you mentioned, Jorge, to nurture and to identify that there is an opportunity for this person to showcase a talent in another department, right? So there's that meld and the dance of conversations and that are spoken, that are unspoken about what are the needs of the organization, what are the needs of the individual, how can we make the best of the situation where we may not have been able to give an opportunity to somebody before, but now we are able to look at a different way, have a different lens in the way in which we deal and manage with our people. We spoke a lot about empathy. The next question I have is actually about what it truly means to be an empathetic leader. I'm going to address that to Adrian so that he has the floor for that question, and then we move on to the next question after that. You read in the newspapers, you read blogs, you've seen in social media, this is the age of the empathetic leader, the leader that shows resilience, that shows care, and as the king or queen, so his or her kingdom, as they say, right? So it kind of trickles down, as Stephenie earlier mentioned, how the leadership manages the organization, the values that they embody, how they walk the talk, lead by example. I mean, these are things that we've heard before. In a situation like this, how has Adisio, how have you shown empathy in very concrete ways to challenging situations that your colleagues have faced in your organization?
Thank you, Artie, for the question. I think it's a very relevant question. And going forward, we're going to use a lot more than we are doing today. Honestly, if you ask me, empathy, it's a skill set, more and more important in the working world tomorrow, more than today. And it's the ability to listen. I think it's a very funny anecdote, but when you look at ourselves, the way we are composed, I always tell my guys, 2 ears, 1 mouth. That's how we are constructed, right? And therefore, empathy, it's not just about caring and understanding, but listening to the people, listening to their needs, understanding what they're going through, sharing success stories. I think it's important. I mean, every day you're hearing about the doom and gloom about COVID. What about the success stories? I think it's important to listen to people, the type of challenges they're having. More and more, I feel that leaders need to have that personal touch. It's not just about, the work processes, delivering your KPIs, but also I think an empathetic leader is one like what Stephenie and Jorge has mentioned rightfully. It's the ability to adapt and be agile, in the face of change, in the face of crisis, and to be able to step up. As what Stephenie and Jorge mentioned, anyone can be a talent, right? A talent is not someone put in authority or position to do something, but someone who's having the ability to step up, having the ability to, like what the famous quote from Alvin Toffler, to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn by listening to the people, on the ground, to really understand what they're going through. What's the worker in the factory facing when you're asking people to go back to work when everybody's in a lockdown position? Do you understand what he's thinking about? For example, we are working from home, but someone is physically needing to go back to open the gates of the plant to make sure our clients get supply. You need to understand, what about the people working from home? We think that when we first started the work from home policy, everyone was very happy. But what about 4 to 6 weeks after? I mean, we always imagine everyone has a house that has a bed of roses, right? Nice big gardens, but it's not the case. I mean, there are people in our organization, we know live in 2-3 room HDB flats, and they're sharing. Can you imagine you have 4 or 5 people in the same place sharing the Wi-Fi, and when you have a business meeting, there are 4 people in your background, kids running around. And so you need to really understand empathy is going beyond your day-to-day life, but really understand what your guys go through, how to give them support, and do not underestimate the mental stress, which is the invisible part that, it's like before the volcano eruption, it's always calm. It's just like the eye of the storm. Before the hurricane comes, everything is very calm, but things can blow if leaders are not empathetic enough to detect, anticipate, prepare, and support, your organization. So, I mean, that's my take on that. And also one important experience or lesson I can share from this few months during COVID, I believe as leaders, to be empathy, you need to really trust people a lot, like what our fellow panelists have said, to stay, with the level of solidarity, and keep telling and keep emphasizing to, our leaders, guys, you have to trust people, and the only way you trust people, you need to focus on the performance and do not focus on the activities. I think these are things that we have to learn day to day. And more importantly, one last thing, it's not just being empathetic, but also putting your company's mission statement on sustainability into practice. I think it's important that you demonstrate to your organization that when you say sustainability, it's not by lip service and putting it in a big, printed nice company board on the wall, but putting in practice, like, during the COVID crisis, other than the professional activities, we listen to the people, and they feel that, hey, we're part of Singapore, how can we contribute it back? So I think there are many activities that we lead together with the organization, to work with needy groups within and outside of the organizations to make sure that we can go through this tough time together. So I think empathy takes a long way, and it's still a learning process as we speak.
Artie, I just have to add on to this, right? Sometimes the organization underestimates the mental health of our staff, right? Especially during this period of time, like what Adrian has already said. And I think we all gone through that whole emotions, right? Yay, we finally can work from home, right? It's ideal. And I'm today working from home, and it's ideal for me because it's CSLA marking days and my kids are at home, right? But the mental stress, right? Like of, having been at home, especially your coop up, for working moms, you have, 3 kids in the background and, tons of meetings to attend to. Or I even heard of, people who wanted to even move out during the circuit breaker because they're living in a 3-room flat with, uncle, aunties, parents. There's so many things that as leaders and in my organization, that daily check-in with the staff is very important. And what we have done is not only just to talk about work, right? Like what Adrian said, it's not about activities, it's also being connected as well, right? And then just listen out to detect, hey, are you feeling fine? And sometimes just a word of care, how are you, goes, a long way. And what we have also done is sometimes we deliberately have drinks day, right? So we just, during our stand-ups, we just don't have any meetings. Don't talk about any deadlines or work. And we just, what I did for my team is I actually send them drinks. And we had drinks virtually. And it goes the same for, many departments as well. Managers buying lunches, and then we have virtual lunches together. And what we even did is we have games together as a division. So we conducted, we have Wheel of Fortune, charades, and it's just to get everyone together. But also recognizing that there are needs, that there is the whole person behind that individual. So I just want
Thank you so much, Stephenie, for that. Certainly the next wave, we've seen the digital wave, and it's not completely finished yet. There's sustainability and climate change, but along with that is going to be this big wave on mental health. And that is something to address at individual, team, organizational, societal, and a global scale, kind of coming out of this pandemic and how we are as a world recovering better together. We are running out of time for the questions for the panelists itself. What I would like to do is maybe open up the floor for questions from from the audience, and then we can always come back to any of the things that we've shared, whether it's the tools, whether it's agile method, looking at entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm sure our audience will have more questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for the moment and see if we have any questions in the chat. I am unable to see them. Perhaps Victor, you would like to moderate the beginning, and then I would go ahead with any questions that are getting populated in the chat. So to all our participants, feel free to address your queries to our panelists here, and I'll be happy to address them to them as well.
No, thanks, Artie, and a big thank you to Adrian, Stephenie, and Jorge for some interesting comments. I've got a couple of questions for you first, while we wait for other brave souls to key in their questions in the Q&A box. You spoke about leadership walking the talk. You spoke about empathetic leadership. I was also interested that Jorge in particular focused on the attitudes and the importance of attitudes, not just for leaders, but also for team members, employees. Now, we all know that workplace culture in many countries, including Singapore, is not uniformly good. In fact, sitting in the chamber, we have heard lots of horror stories about really toxic workplace environments. What would the panel's advice be to somebody who has seen a lot of disruption because of COVID-19 to their operations, to the way they work, to the way they live? What would your advice be to leaders who have led toxic teams, either because of the ultimate focus on P&L, profit and revenue? What would your advice to them be? How can they start a change process? Because I think our society is crying out for it. And since we spend so much time at work, this is really the whole importance for us in the chamber as we advocate for positive workplace culture. So you're great practitioners in your businesses. What would your advice be to fellow business people thinking about how do they make the change?
Okay, Victor, I think you have raised a very important topic and very challenging one. Because once you work in a toxic environment, or you have been working, let's not use the word toxic, but let's say in a difficult environment, and some of these are legacy companies that has been around for 50, 60, 100 years or more. So how you change the culture, how you change is a difficult process, but I guess business leaders need to realize that if you are going to make some changes, this is the best time to do it, because people are realizing that nothing is secure or sure for on anything, in any aspect. So our recommendation always to our clients is to go back to the fundamentals, go back to who you are, what's the purpose of the company, and start by ingraining or no. I was talking to another executive from a technology company. I cannot mention the company name because he said that he liked to brainwash all his employees. He said, I want to ensure that everyone is aligned with us. They have very stringent criteria when they recruit a team member. They must have a set of values and alignment with the company that is above 50% of all the team members within the department. So they speak, they walk, they train, all is about culture from day one, and they go through intensive process of recruitment. So he was telling us, when we need to let people go, we will let people go. When we need to recruit, we will recruit, and we will do the most extensive recruitment process. But I think very important, and just to make this answer not too long, is to go back to the fundamentals. Tell people about your purpose as a company and start gauging, even conducting surveys. The beauty of during COVID times is that we notice that there are many tools available today, and you can conduct surveys to assess. I mean, don't need to be even face-to-face, but you can conduct surveys, and then after that, talk to head of departments to understand and try to come out with sense on the information that has been gathered. But the decisions and the process of changing culture it takes a while. But I will suggest that if you don't say it now, later will be too late. So my suggestion is just go back to the fundamentals and just share everything within your organization.
Victor, just adding on to what Jorge has actually mentioned, I think the listening is very important, right, for any leaders. And taking a cue from what Adrian has actually said earlier, right? We have two eyes, two eyes, 2 ears. And the Chinese word for listening is ting, right? It actually says that you have to listen with full attention and with the heart as well. And I think, for any difficult culture, or if I just, take the bull by its horn and say a toxic culture, being transparent and recognizing that there are processes or perhaps practices which are not condoned is there. I think we need to be brave about it. We need to be open, right? And taking these feedbacks, so do a pulse check with the entire organization, recognize what are the fallacies, in the organization, where are the gaps, and then take that courage to address them. We may not fix every single processes overnight, but I think one step at a time, right, recognizing it and taking, the inspiration to even take that step to have converts as well. Recognize who are the early adopters and get them, on your side. And then have that ripple effect across the organization. But at the same time, also take a stock take of the talent density within the organization. Who are the followers? Who are the ones that, will push the organization strategy and propel it forward? And who are the naysayers? No, take the naysayers one side, talk to them. And also respect the process as well. If they think that this is not the place for them, have an empathetic engagement with them and ask them, where do they want to be? Do they want to be on the bus? Or perhaps they want to take another bus? That's my 2 cents.
And just one little point just to add, I think both Jorge and Stephenie has already, talk about the key essence about this question. I think one little thing I just want to mention, Victor, to your question is, I don't believe there is a toxic person. I think toxic culture is a lot more here, more in the mindset than in the person. Like what Stephenie and Jorge mentioned, you just need to engage the people, explain to them, why we think that that is probably not in the best interest of the organization, because we are part of the big ecosystem, right, in the organization, and everyone plays an important part to put things together. It's like Lego blocks. I mean, no one is mutually exclusive from each other. I think the culture part has to come both bottoms up and top down. I mean, leadership by example, as you said, walking the talk. You have to show the people this is not what we are espousing in a difficult situation, and to take away all the idiosyncrasies that is associated with a toxic culture. I think that's very, very important, that the leadership themselves embraces it, tells the people, communicate about that, and show by doing. I mean, if the leader is doing it, it slowly cascade down. I think that will slowly but surely, be taken away, over time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Artie, I think you've got some questions in the chat box.
We certainly have a few, and we have about 12 minutes to cover 3 to 4 questions. We'll see how it goes, and maybe there's one question on. I'll just go over the questions, and we can see maybe we can have the panelists address one or multiple topics together, looking at how your organization supports mental health and how you do that differently now compared to a pre-COVID situation. Are there new processes and tools that you have introduced, and will you continue to have them as you move forward? We also spoke on Monday, just before the panel itself, about onboarding new employees. Culture comes through meeting people, the conversations that we have. It's a socialization process that's now very different, that's online. And how do you pass culture online when they're not able to actually be there in that space of the organization and try to feel viscerally what this place is about, and how do you ensure we can have that? There's also another question about check-ins and trust. When there are too many check-ins, how do you ensure a good balance between letting go and trusting them, focusing on the performance versus actual activities and micromanaging? So these are some of the questions that we have over here. Maybe Stephenie, you talked a little bit about mental well-being and mental health. Can you tell us a few initiatives that you have in Bank of Singapore about how mental health is addressed? What are the conversations you're having around that? And what specific tools or initiatives would you continue to have in the coming years?
Sure, thank you for this, Artie. We have a helpline for our staff to actually call. So it's an external counseling center. If they need any help, they can actually talk to someone independent and outside of the organization. So that's something that we have actually availed to not only the staff, but also their family members as well. On top of that, we actually do a lot of lunchtime talks, right, virtually. So we have mindfulness sessions, we have online yogas, you know, just to take the stress away from just day-to-day work. We also do Grab vouchers, you know, to incentivize our staff when they participate in some of these as well. And I think more importantly, I see our HR team also very much in the forefront. They have been actively engaging managers, people. They develop a manager guide to engaging their team members, giving them step-by-step engagement on how they reach out to staff, how do they talk to staff, if, you know, they have observed any behaviors that probably, you know, it's a little bit worrying, for example, then how do they refer the staff, you know, for perhaps some help. So these are some of the initiatives that we have put in place within the bank. I think so far, the talks particularly has been very well received. So there's quite hundreds of staff, you know, who have joined in, not only from Singapore, we are regionally located as well. So it's really nice to see staff from all over the world dialing in at the same time, doing the same poses. I guess it's really heartwarming during this period of time as well.
Thank you for that, Stephenie. I mean, the online world kind of opens up. There's an equal opportunity to be on screen and to be the same size of the video panel that you have on the screen. So in terms of voice, people who didn't have voice before are able to put something in the chat, and in a normal meeting they wouldn't have spoken up. But clearly, those are initiatives that add to the spirit. It's really to sort of restore the morale and the spirit of the organization and focus on how they can feel well while continuing to deal with the situation. Adrian, maybe you have something to tell us about how you have onboarded any of your colleagues in the past months who have joined you newly, and what challenges did you face? Do you feel they get what Aditio is about, or get what this leadership is about? And what do you feel is missed in a situation like this? That's
an excellent question. I think we need to think, you know, from the perspective of the employee. I mean, when they first sign the contract and the first day they come to work, they're at home. So they say, is this real? I mean, is this a real job offer? Do I have a real job? Yes, you have a real job. But I think the challenge was, how do you connect the people? Because we tend to take for granted people who's been in organizations for years, decades. You know, you have this relationship, this foundation already built. But for new people, this is really lacking. How do you get this trust, this buy-in, and build this esprit de corps, this sense of belonging for new people is a challenge. I mean, not even talking about values, culture, you know, all this value system, but even very basic thing. How do you ship a laptop to the person to start working, right? Which are the chat groups they should join? I think that there are many things that we do physically, but also at the same time, I think we created this year during the COVID crisis, starting to have newsletters, regional newsletters. So I think that's a very, very good way to communicate what's really going on within the organization, not just globally, but regionally, the different functions, whether you're in the commercial team, whether you're in the technical team or the supply chain team, finance, it doesn't really matter. I mean, everybody is really sharing what they're doing. So it's a very good way to communicate in a digital way. Myself, I'm also leading this frequent regional update where we invite each and every one to talk about where the company is doing, what we need to, where our success stories and where we are probably having challenge and need to really speed up and accelerate. And I feel that digital tools today has really given us a lot of opportunities. I mean, whether, as we said, from newsletters, even WhatsApp groups, we started different WhatsApp groups just to have fun. People have different personal talents. Like what Jorge said, there are some great cooks in the classes. I mean, we say, okay, let's start cook WhatsApp group, and these people share the best photos I've never seen in my life. To the best restaurants in Singapore, and then these little things help really, engage people and to take away the stress, from the day-to-day work, and people will slowly feel, part and parcel of being the organization beyond, a 9-to-5 job, a professional relationship. And I feel for me that helps a little bit. But of course, trust relationship is not built overnight. Just like Rome is not built overnight. This takes time. This takes a lot of effort. And I think today, leaders have to invest more of their professional and personal time in this matter, especially to get the buy-in and get people to be part of your organization, because humans are social animals. We just can't build a trust in relationship on the screen like this. Not possible. So.
Yeah, Adrian, actually, no man is an island, right? And adding to onboarding, Bank of Singapore, what we have done is we actually have virtual induction program. So we get together new joiners. And I must say our CEO has actually carved out a lot of time. He actually makes an effort to be part of this virtual induction program. And we welcome, new joiners who have joined during the COVID period from all walks of life, all different parts of the organization to be part of it. And I think that engagement from leadership is very important.
Yeah, to feel welcome, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you to our panelists and to all our participants who have questions. John, Fazila, Kevin, Yvonne, and Stephen. Even if we don't address your specific questions, I hope the sharing from our panelists address some part of your inquiry over here. We have 4 minutes left, and we do want to end with. What is the one thing that you would do differently, or what is the call to action that you have for yourself, for your team, for the ones who are with us today in terms of creating a sustainable organizational culture? 30 seconds each, and then I hand over to, they are very prepared, Victor. I've already told them that this is coming up. So this is one of those exams that you know the question for before. But after that, I would leave the floor to Victor to thank all of us and share a few more words to close the session. So let's start with Stephenie. What would you do differently? What should we do differently? What is your call to action?
I will leave everyone with my favorite quotation from the 6th president of the America, John Adam Quincy. I would say, if you inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, right, you are a leader. So in today's world of disruption, change is a constant. Promote that stellar self-leadership culture of learning. Make every ordinary style extraordinary.
Thank you. Adrian.
Well, I think for me, one thing I'll do differently is to re-engineer the workplace. I think let's not imagine that the workplace of today will be the workplace of tomorrow. How we can re-engineer the workplace to foster more collaboration, more trust, more team building is becoming more and more important. It's no longer the type of workplace we used to know, where everybody sit at a desk and do their job. I think a lot has to change. There has to be more common space, open spaces for people to work together, and for a place for people to come together and to communicate, and for leaders to do the team building. And I think this is going to be very, very important in the world ahead of us.
Thank you, Adrian. And Jorge?
I think I will split my answer into two. So one is about employees. I think what we are going to do different, I guess, is build more on our family spirit. I think we treat our organization as a family. So I want to ensure that everyone spend quality time, not talking about procedure, but talking about issues that concern you, concern as individual. So I would say more personal talk. I think this is the part that we have been disconnected a bit. We have been too functional, I would say. Second part is about with our clients. I would say that we will be, I think we will be working closely with them. I think understanding their pains and addressing those needs. So I think this is something that we will work harder moving forward.
Thank you very much to all three of you. Victor, the floor is yours for your final words on today's session.
Artie, thank you so much. It's been a great session, and I want to thank you for curating such a great panel. And I want to thank Adrian, Stephenie, and Jorge for sharing their experiences, their philosophies, and their thoughts with us. COVID-19 is one of those catalysts for change, and we've seen it so much in the way we work, in the way we relate to people. And the hope, of course, is that when all this is over, we won't forget these key lessons. You know, toxic organizations are those where people are undervalued, where people are bullied, where people are undermined, where people are not developed, and arguably where leaders do not do the job that they are paid to do, which is to remove the obstacles that prevent their team members from excelling. And as I said at the beginning, happy teams make for happy customers. And that is something that every single person needs to think about. I'm particularly struck by the panel's joint focus on the fact that leadership, of course, is not just in the C-suite. Leadership is at every level, and self-leadership is every bit as important. And you can see that in the toxicity of social media, where there is very little self-leadership, and there needs to be. And there needs to be greater accountability and responsibility by everyone in an organization to move that organization forward. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. It's been great to have you here. And on behalf of me and all of us at SICC, we want to thank you and our audience for your presence, your company, and your sharing today. And if there's anything we can do for you in the Secretariat in terms of topics you want us to cover, areas you think we need to emphasize, things you think we've missed, please let us know. Drop us a line to herettohelp@sicc.com.sg. We are here to help you. That is our purpose. So from me and all the team and this wonderful panel, goodbye, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.